it didn't matter. They didn't expect an answer. They just wanted to be around him, to see if a few drops of his Hollywood glitter would dust their ordinary lives for a second. "Angel, could I get a picture taken with you?" He glanced up from the autograph he was signing and looked at the young girl who'd asked the question. She was short and round, with cheeks that looked like china plates and waves of frizzled brown hair. He knew her in an instant. She was the girl who never got invited to the best parties and tried desperately not to care. He knew all about that. Even now, years later, he could remember what it felt like to be a teenaged boy on the outside looking in, how much it hurt. He smiled at her, and her eyes widened in surprise. She stared at him as if he'd hung the moon, and that was all it took. That one look from a stranger shot through his bloodstream like a drug. Why, darling, I'd be honored. He pulled away from his date and ducked under the police tape. He felt hands all over him, smoothing along his jacket, tangling in his hair. It used to bother him, that unsought intimacy, but he'd learned to live with it, even enjoy it if they didn't go too far. He slipped an arm around the girl and drew her close, huddling beneath the overhang of the old brick building. Another girl, tall and gangly, flashed a quick photo of them. "You look awfully pretty tonight," he said. The girl was wearing a floor-length white satin dress. "It's homecoming," she lisped, almost blinding him with the silver from her braces. Homecoming. It was a word he hadn't heard in a long time, a lifetime, and suddenly he felt old. If he were this girl's father, he would have watched her get dressed in sparkles and beads for a school dance. He wondered what that would have felt like. He brushed the vague sense of regret aside. "Where's your date?" A blush crept up her fleshy cheeks. "I don't have one. Me and some girlfriends thought we'd just watch. We were on the decorating committee." For a split second, he wasn't Angel DeMarco, movie star. He was Angelo DeMarco, the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. "Where's the dance?" he asked softly. She pointed down the street. "At the high school? The gym?" Before he had time to think about it, he grabbed the girl's hand and led her down the street. The crowd hushed, then parted for them. "Angel!" He heard his name and paused, turning around. Val Leitner, his agent and friend, was standing alongside Rubber Dress. They were both waving at him. "Where are you going?" Val yelled, flicking his cigarette into the street. "They're waiting for you inside." Angel grinned. That was the greatest thing about fame. They always waited. "Be right back." Still smiling, he led the awestruck girl across the street. Together, they slipped into the gymnasium. The place was decorated with what must have been 10 reams of toilet paper. Up on stage, the band was pounding out a horrible rendition of Madonna's "Crazy for You." He heard people gasp as he led the girl onto the dance floor. Fingers pointed, drinks fell, giggling stopped. But he didn't look around. He looked at the girl, only the girl. "May I have this dance?" She opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out except a high-pitched squeak. He took her in his arms and danced with her for the last 30 seconds of the song, and when it was over, he drew back. Feeling surprisingly good, he strode from the auditorium. The kids were swarming their new queen. "How very touching," drawled a voice from outside. Angel forced a grin. 11 to 17, he said harshly. "It's my audience." Val clapped Angel on the back and pulled him out into the rainy night. "You'll have women sobbing on hard copy, for God's sake, and teenaged girls sending you invitations to the prom." Yeah, I know. Now let's get to the goddamn party. I need a drink." They raced back across the street. Angel's date was standing exactly where he'd left her, in the rain. For a split second, he wished he'd brought someone else, someone who mattered, but he couldn't think who the hell that would be. Irritated by the thought, he grabbed the woman's hand and pulled her toward the Elks Hall. Together, ducking from the rain, they surged into the building and climbed the rickety stairs to the huge lobby. Weak overhead lighting pushed through the murky interior, creating pockets of marshy gold amidst the shadows.